Welcome to John and Theory. I am John Negroni, and today is a very special day. It's LUCA Day, which I have been promising all week, ever since there was a news story the other day that teased we would be getting a bunch of new information about Pixar's LUCA later this week with the release of an exclusive, pretty sure it's exclusive, Empire piece about the next Pixar film. That film, of course, is LUCA. We've talked about LUCA plenty of times on this channel, and it's definitely a Pixar film that is wrapped in a lot of mystery until now. Now, to manage your expectations, LUCA, there's still a lot we don't know. There's still plenty still to be discovered about this one, and I hope we don't get our hopes up too high about how much information we are actually going to get. But it is significant. We have learned quite a bit, and I'm very excited to dive into this with you all. So again, all this information is coming from Empire Magazine, and we are able to access this information together. So what are we looking at? So this is the first thing, of course. This image was circulating already a few days ago. Some of you have probably already seen this image of LUCA. Those are our two main characters. I believe LUCA is the one on the left, and the young boy on the right is, I think his name is Alberto. It's in the story. So a lot of you have already seen this photo. We can kind of zoom in a little bit here. We have some characters in the background. We have some of the shops and locations that we've seen some tease footage of it where like they're eating spaghetti and stuff like that. We know that there's going to be like gelato, so you can see the gelato place that they're going to visit. In fact, you even see a little kid right there enjoying her gelato. I don't know if you know this, but 22 from Seoul becomes that little girl. It's true. Yeah, that's been confirmed by like multiple Pixar animators. Okay, joking. And then, of course, this image here is pretty interesting. Keep this image in mind because that there is a human character conquering like a sea monster. So we're going to come back to this image because this image is very important in terms of kind of understanding some of the visual stuff of this movie that we haven't really gotten a full glimpse of yet. So, okay. Here is the story, LUCA, and I'm going to magnify this a little bit so you all can see it and read along. So this is not a long thing. This is not a ton of information, but let's go through it together. So Pixar's next opus is a humble ode to Italy, well, Italy and sea monsters. And yeah, so the caption says, friends like these, LUCA with his new best pal, Alberto. Yeah, I still hold that Alberto is the guy on the right. And then, yeah, the story is from Ollie Richards. And here we go. The latest outing from the ever unpredictable Pixar sounds like The Little Mermaid meets Stand By Me, except without the songs or a dead body. I'm sure a lot of you already know what Little Mermaid is. If you haven't watched Stand By Me or read the novella, that is a Stephen King novel that's about, coming of age, kids going on adventures and being kids. So there you go. That we know of. Directed by Enrico Casarosa, who made the company's Oscar-nominated 2011 short La Luna. It's an almost literal fish-out-of-water comedy. All right, so we've already known this stuff for a while. This is not a lot of new information. The story follows two young male sea creatures. So this is the big revelation. First big revelation is that they're both sea creatures. We've been sort of led to believe up until now that one of them is a sea creature and the other like finds out that they're a sea creature. That's why I was kind of comparing this to maybe to something like Wolfwalkers, but that's actually not the case. Both of these characters, these boys, they're sea monsters. And again, it's kind of important to point out that like this is a town that has a sea monster or anti-sea monster history there. So the Wolfwalker comparisons come into play, I guess, eventually. And then let's see here. Yeah. So one of them is shy, one of them is bold. They take a trip to the world above where they befriend a human girl and experience the marvel of life on dry land. So I don't think we've seen this little girl yet, the human girl, in any of the, unless I've missed something. I don't think we know what she looks like. But this is where I think people were getting like confused. There is an element of these characters befriending humans, but they themselves are not. So just important to point out. And we'll see, we'll kind of see where the story goes from there. I have a feeling there's a lot of the story they're leaving out on purpose. And personality wise makes sense. One of them is kind of timid, the other is a little bit more outspoken. You can kind of tell from the image like what kind of personalities they have, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, so and then the whole impetus for this is that I think we're assuming that these two boys, this is their first time on dry land. They are sort of experiencing life for the first time. They're experiencing Italy for the first time. A nice little screenwriting tip, and to kind of inform why they chose to do this is because when you're making a movie and you're writing a script or doing a story, and your location is kind of different, it's fanciful, it's really important to let your characters experience things for the first time too, or to have a character who is an audience surrogate. So if you're watching a movie, you can kind of point this out for yourself now. Pay attention to these things. The idea is that the director wants us to experience Italy for the first time through their eyes, at least this version of Italy. And it works even for people who live in Italy who watch the movie, because for them, it's like a nostalgic experience. It's something that's sort of like calling back to a certain time. That's why the film is supposed to be, as we'll read on, related to like classic Italian cinema instead of a more contemporary version of Italy. The idea is that the people watching this, whether they're experiencing this kind of aesthetic for the first time or they're revisiting an aesthetic that is like romanticized, everyone's gonna like it. So that's how you make movies, people. Yeah, you find ways to get everybody involved on an emotional level. Okay, so they're gonna experience the marvel of life on dry land. Okay. So this is a quote from Casa Rosa. It's a bit like two kids going to the big city for the first time. See what I mean? It says Casa Rosa, except in this case, the big city is a sleepy fishing village in Italy where denizens tell terrible tales of the monsters in the water. The creatures blend in because when they're out of the water, they appear human. It's only when they get wet that they turn scaly and finny. All right, Pixar theory fans, I know a lot of you are already thinking this, because I've been thinking this ever since we found out that LUCA features sea monsters. What Pixar movie do you think we're probably going to talk about with this in terms of the Pixar theory, where like all the Pixar movies are connected? There's two of them, Monsters Inc. and Onward. Onward is very much a Pixar movie with monsters. So is Monsters Inc. What I think is really cool about the idea of LUCA is that it's going to give us a glimpse into the monster society before all the stuff that happens with Wall-E. And when I say monster society, just like the idea that it's possible. The only sort of monster we ever get in the movies is in Brave, which is like with Mordu, there's a way to like turn human beings into monsters, which is, that's Pixar theory stuff. Now, in terms of like some of the rules we're getting, this stuff is really interesting too, because monsters tend to have like special characteristics. And so the little twist here is that as soon as they get wet, they go back to their non-human form. I think this is actually a really cool twist, because like, we've seen, this isn't totally new. There's a lot of folklore where like monsters turn into like humans, but then like something can happen to them where they, like reduce back into their forms. I'm not aware of one that specifically directs or calls back to this. If I ever got to interview Casarosa, I would ask him like some of that, if there was like very specific inspiration for this version of the fish lore, because I'm not aware of any on the top of my head. But I like this idea because that means these kids, there is like some stakes, there's some tension. As they're exploring and having fun in Italy, things can still be kind of dangerous because they could be outed as sea monsters in a place where, as we're reading here, people hate sea monsters and would kill them. If you're just jumping in, I mean, look at that. Like, that's pretty clear the people who live here do not like sea creatures, although it's unclear if they believe in the sea creatures or if that's just part of like urban legend that sea creatures are a thing. It says here, where denizens tell terrible tales of the monsters in the water. It's probably folklore. It's probably like urban legends. It's probably not like How to Train Your Dragon, where like people like accept and know that dragons are a thing. I don't think that's what we're getting at here, because I think that would be too far out of like reality. I think people would not buy that. But we'll see, actually. I mean, you never know. There could be, I'm sure there's going to be characters in here, maybe at least one, who is like, yes, the monsters, they're real, but, in an Italian voice. And these characters have to be like, oh, no, that sounds terrible if there was a sea monster in front of you. But anyway, I do like so far this setup and this dynamic. And, like when I was talking about this movie before, I know some of you were kind of like, come on, John, this movie, it looks cool. It's like, it's a cool idea. And I think why I wasn't sold, and now I'm finding myself with my mind changed, is that, I don't know, these rules and this setup, that extra flavor is what's getting me excited. It's not really the setting, and it's not really the idea, the hook of like, sea creatures hanging out on land in Italy that sells me. It's the combination of it. It's like the way that you have this like coming of age tale told in this special way that has me interested, that has me invested on an emotional level. I think that it would have been very easy to miss that, like, having sea creatures who were ostensibly like very powerful or dangerous hanging out in Italy would be kind of low stakes. It would be kind of like, well, whatever, hope they have a good time. I don't care. But the fact that like there's a very easy way for them to be in danger, that's really helpful, especially for kids movies. What makes Stand By Me so investing is that they do dangerous and risky things, and that's I think that's why they're calling to Stand By Me in the first place. So yeah, I am very convinced on this film being exciting and interesting, but we have more to get to here. And I forgot to mention, they have scales, they have fins, all of that's pretty much a given. I don't think anybody was expecting otherwise. Casarosa says the film is based on personal experience. So this is where it gets into the more relatable, like, this story has a purpose. This story has like a hook that's going to make you care about these boys. Quote, yeah, I was born a sea monster. He's joking. No, I was born in Genoa, Italy, and my summers were spent on beaches. I met my best friend when I was 11. I was really shy, and I found this troublemaker of a kid who had a completely different life. I wanted to make a movie about those kinds of friendships that help you grow up. When I read this, I was like, this guy gets it. Like, this guy gets that when you're making a movie, it really is all about finding the personal connection and bringing it to other people in the special way that makes you, not to borrow a thing from Soul. I've never been to Italy. I've always wanted to go, but I've never been to Italy. And so for me, experiencing this movie is going to be similar to how I've experienced classic Italian films that I love. One of my favorite films of all time is La Dolce Vita. I just absolutely love that film. And yes, Federico Fellini gets brought up here. But something else that I respond to a lot is childhood friendships. Especially in this time of life. I know when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, I had that best friend, a lot of us did, who kind of like expanded our world, like expanded our horizons and made us explore and do risky things we never thought we could do. You find out what you're capable of doing when you and a friend at a certain age go and you strike forth and you have an adventure. And like that angle, that whole idea is what makes me think this movie could actually be really good. I think before I was really skeptical and I was like, why greenlight this film? This is one of, I think, the first films, if not the first film that Pete Docter greenlit as the chief creative officer of Pixar. And I'm starting to see the fuller picture. Now they're starting to reveal these things. And I'll admit, I'm getting excited, especially with this next bit. Aside from his own life, his influences for Luca were Miyazaki. Quote, because I'm a fanatic, he says, and Fellini, among other greats of mid-20th century Italian cinema. Quote, because we wanted little homages to Italian movies all over the place. Expect something charmingly intimate in scale, then but limitless we expect in imagination. I love this quote. I love this angle because Miyazaki and Fellini are two of my favorite filmmakers. And it's such a brilliant, genius combination. I mean, we've gotten Miyazaki things. We've gotten Studio Ghibli things, I should say. Not really Miyazaki, but we've gotten Studio Ghibli projects like wonderful animation, Eastern animation that has gone into the world of like, sea creatures and fish and monsters and stuff. But this combination, especially from a studio as meticulous and story-oriented as Pixar, that actually really is very exciting to me. This idea that this film can be in part a fable, or at least fabulistic, and also like very contemporary and grounded in a very authentic world where anything is possible. That when I think of Italian films, that's what I think of. Another film to bring up, and I'm sure that they're calling to this because of what we've seen so far, but Bicycle Thief, one of the greatest movies of all time, and one of the films that really kicked off the Italian wave of cinema that a lot of us take for granted. I know a lot of you are coming into this channel as Pixar and animation fans, but your homework, if you choose to accept it, is to watch at least one Federico Fellini film. I recommend 8.5 before you watch this film, assuming you are, of course, like old enough to watch a more adult, more mature film like that. I know most of you are, but if any of you are a little bit younger, you definitely want to hold off on the Fellini education. I don't think you need to rush necessarily. Also, Bicycle Thief, as I mentioned, is a great film. Once you've gotten a little bit used to Fellini and you've experienced some of his more accessible works, I guess I should say, then I highly, highly recommend you check out La Dolce Vita at some time. It is a challenging watch, but a very rewarding one. And if you see some of those films before you see Luca, I think you will be happy you did so. So that is my challenge to you all. And yeah, that's the entire story. That's everything we learned. That is Luca Day. It's not a ton of information, but as you can tell, I found plenty of ways to bring it up to to add some of my own flavor, my own Italian flavor to the discussions. I'm not Italian, by the way. I know some people think I am because my last name is Negroni, but no, I'm Puerto Rican and Italian, kind of like Italian way back. I think my ancestors on like my dad's side were eventually in like Corsica, which is kind of like French Italian. But I'm mainly like Spanish, African, and Puerto Rican indigenous, which is known as Taino. Those are my three main. But yeah, so that is Luca. Who has questions or comments? It looks like Lauren entered the chat. Let's see what Lauren had to say. I'm really excited for Luca. I like how different these character designs look compared to past Pixar films. They remind me of character designs from Aardman films. Yeah, that is definitely the first thing I thought of. I was thinking of everything from even like some of the DreamWorks stuff too that they did. They kind of mess around with the Aardman aesthetic for sure. Also, like I was thinking like this kind of borrows a little bit from Leica, but not that much. And that's the thing. It reminds of Aardman, but I don't think it's slavish to it, you know? Like, I don't think it really looks like Aardman to the point where it's like almost plagiarism, which I like. One other art design or animation design that this reminds me of, and this is not a pejorative, but, and I'm not being negative or dismissing it, kind of reminds me of those like commercials, like, and those are inspired by Aardman for sure, where like the kid, it has like sinuses and he's like blowing his nose and stuff. And he's like, like, I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but there's like a certain animation. It reminds me of this kid, maybe because of how red his nose is. It's a gross oversimplification, of course. This is obviously a much more well-designed thing because it's Pixar. They've spent years doing the art direction on this, but yeah, I thought of that as well. And then you have another comment. The turning scaly thing when wet reminds me of a show I used to watch as a kid called H2O, when three teenage girls turn into mermaids whenever they got wet. I've never seen H2O, but I have heard of it. So that is a great reference point. So some people might be checking this out and be like, John, that's H2O. You ever heard of H2O? Yeah, I've heard of it. It's a little bit after, or, that's after my time. It wasn't really a thing, I guess, when I was watching those shows, but that's good to know. I will add that to my archives and I might look into that so I can have a little bit more point of reference. Yeah, if anybody else thinks of something else, like some other popular pop culture thing, with this idea of like getting wet turns you into a fish, please let me know. Or not a fish, but like a mer creature or something. That would be super informative for me because, yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of things. I mean, there's plenty of like, don't get them wet, gremlins, sure. Which obviously is not really what this is going for. But okay, that is everything I have for you all for Luca Day. Luca Day, I believe, was a complete success. And I'm excited to learn more about this film with all of you. And yeah, I'll see you all on the next one. Don't forget, if you want to be joining me live, just hit the notification thing, the bell. That's what it is. If you hit the bell, you're going to be able to know when I'm going live and stuff, and join me in the live chat, ask me any questions, and start up any discussions. Leave a comment if you have a topic you want me to address on a live stream. Comments on any of my videos, I keep track of all the comments. Unfortunately, I read the comments. But yeah, just send those my way, and I can look at incorporating any questions you might have into a topic for a certain day, depending on how things go. Later this week, okay, so today was Luca Day. Tomorrow is when Pixar Popcorn kicks off officially. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I hope. And I still don't know exactly what we're going to be doing for Pixar Popcorn, how we're going to be talking about it. But however we do, I think it will be a good time had by all. Enjoy Pixar Popcorn. Let me know what you think of it. If you see it before I do a video on any of the episodes, I'm probably going to go episode by episode. I don't know how long it'll take because I don't know how many shorts it's going to be available on day one. I don't know if it's like all of them, possibly. I don't really know. But yeah, we'll get to that, of course, soon. And yeah, I'm excited. See you all on the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.